drinking water right out of the North Liberty tap. Well, this is the Heartache Connoisseur podcast, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Many of you are traveling. We're getting ready to leave. My son should be upstairs packing snack bags for all of the children right now and polishing off his Game Boy, getting it ready for the van ride. So I'm here to lay down a little bit of info for you on you might call this a little bit of a lesson on how to say no, the philosophy of standing up for yourself and assertiveness. And we're talking about timidity, saying no to being timid and saying yes to being strong. Now, I'm talking to you about this because in my work, a good portion of what I do is help people find their voice, become assertive, stand up for themselves. And it's a major part of emotional health. It's a big deal to be able to say what you mean what you say, stick to your word, let your yes be yes and your no be no. That's a very healthy thing. And we've lost touch with that clearly in our society. And I just want to do a little brushing up on that. So let's define these terms. Timid, that means kind of, soft, nervous, not really wanting to make waves, ruffle any feathers, just go along to get along, which it's a helpful strategy if you don't want people to get mad at you. It's a terrible strategy if you want people to respect you. So the advantage of being timid is that you're not a problem for anybody. You're a wallflower. You kind of hide off into the shadows and nobody kicks you out of the tribe, so to speak. The disadvantage is that people come to see you exactly how you're behaving. They come to see you as less than forthright. They come to see you as someone that they can't necessarily even trust to get a straight answer from because you're spending a good portion of your life saying only what you think other people want to hear. And so there's no way that's always honest. And so then you sort of become this unreliable figure in people's minds, albeit benign, not apt to cause problems for them. And what do I mean by strong? Do I mean, shouting somebody down? No, I don't mean that. Do I mean passive aggression to get your point across? And that's often what timid people end up doing when they get angry and are trying to communicate is they resort to more passive aggressive tactics. For example, I knew this lady who, would get very upset with the ways that she felt her family was not appreciating her, and she would just stop doing all housework until everyone just sort of, kowtowed. So that's one way of going about communicating, right? We communicate with both our words and our actions, and if you have a difficult time communicating with words, actions are often what are employed to get a point across. What I mean by strong is the ability to look somebody right in the eye, say what you mean in a way that's kind, loving, and gentle. It's not alienating. It's not condescending. It's exactly what you mean. It's truthful from your perspective, the best that you can. And then subsequently sticking to that as time goes on. That's what I mean by strong. So who am I talking to? I'm talking to, mostly I'm talking to people in relationships, people with kids, moms and dads. This is something that we start training our kids how to do from the time they're, able to talk. We're displaying these patterns in front of people often, and it gets very ingrained in our behavior. And I think that as oftentimes as marriages go along, let's say, and they start to get into trouble, one of the things that you come to discover when you're working with couples is that this person may have things that they've been holding on to for 20 years that they've not ever said. And because they were afraid of what it could mean if they said the truth. Usually they're afraid that they're going to be rejected or abandoned. I mean, if you want to start getting down deep, a lot of this stuff has to do with abandonment fear. And I think a lot of it has to do with the social nature of the human animal and needing to be kind of accepted by a group for safety reasons. You know, if you can imagine an evolving band out on the plains of the African savannah, if you start making waves and going against the tribe and prove yourself to be a pain in the butt, they're going to stick a spear in your ribs and stick you in a ditch because you're getting in the way of the community, which is required to survive. You got to band together so you can fight that warring tribe coming over the hill. You got to band together to do your farming, your hunting, your gathering, and house construction, and all the things that you've got to do to survive out there. And so that carries forward into modern society, and we are definitely social animals. So, however, and this is kind of the transcendent thing. There's kind of the animal thing, and then there's the human thing. The human transcendent thing is that when you do begin to, quote unquote, make waves in a way that's skillful and truthful, the bonds get even tighter oftentimes. Now, sometimes relationships do fall apart. That is a possibility. When you begin to tell the truth, sometimes relationships dissolve. And that is why I urge you that if you know there's something that you need to say and haven't said to someone in your life, if you believe that you're going to die without that person, you're screwed. You're never going to be able to do it. You have to get healthy enough where you believe that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. That's the first step. So it's kind of like if you want to be able to say no to somebody, you've got to be able to say no first to your own fear, really. So that's where it starts. And, you know, I think with kids, we definitely in our society say yes. I think way too often we're giving our kids a sense of entitlement. We are holding them up kind of as the most important element of the family, as opposed to, say, the marriage. That's really important. You got to have unity in the marriage, and then the kids kind of come underneath that in rank. So if you take the kids and make little Jimmy's baseball team priority over everything else, including emotional maintenance of your marriage, you're going to start running into these problems because people are going to know something's rotten in Denmark, and they're not going to say it, and people are going to start to get bitter and resentful, and before you know it, Johnny thinks he's a prince, or Jimmy, or whoever, Sally with her gymnastics, it doesn't matter. They think they're a prince, and they're entitled to all your time and attention, and so they end up growing up to sort of being entitled little folks, and your relationship's deteriorating. So it's a recipe for disaster. You have to be able to set boundaries with each other and tell the truth. Now, when is the time that you employ this? You employ this boundary setting thing, this saying no to someone. This is a conscience moment. It's when you look inside yourself and you know that you're doing something that isn't right for you. And here's the kicker. You know what's right for you. You're the only one that could possibly know. And part of what being an adult means is getting to a place where you accept that what you believe, what you feel is right for you is actually right for you. Believe that. But also take responsibility that when you do things that ultimately have negative consequences, that's on you. You have to own that. The price of being your own boss is you have to own the consequences of your decisions. So when you stand up for yourself is the moment when you know something isn't right. Something is happening that's going against your internal compass. Let's see. I'll give you an example of this. Well, this is an easy one to kind of see. Like, it would be like if you were married to, say, a drinker, and this person was regularly coming home drunk. They were getting drunk at every holiday and every gathering. And you were enabling that by not saying anything. Sometimes you're picking up liquor at the grocery store and hauling it home. You're giving so-and-so a ride home when they're way too drunk to drive. You're making it possible for them to do that, knowing full well that you're not being helpful, because you don't want to deal with the consequences of standing up to the drinker. That's it. I mean, you know what's going to happen, right? If you say, I'm not doing this anymore, and we'll get into that in a minute. But we all are aware, or at least we have an idea of the potential consequences. Now, often we're wrong about what the other person's reaction is going to be. Sometimes we have it way blown up out of proportion in our minds. And so that's one thing to kind of check yourself on. This is going on in our homes. It's going on in our schools. It's going on in our workplaces. It's definitely a major factor in romantic relationships, parent-child relationships. People are essentially not being honest with themselves and with each other about what they really want to do. Now, the main reason why it's important to be honest with other people about what you really want, who you really are, how you want to spend your time, what's okay with you from a moral standpoint, ethical standpoint. The reason why that's really important is because ultimately, as we grow, we're moving into this state where we become aligned. That's a term that I've heard that I really like the best. We become internally aligned. And what that means is your head and your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, everything in your being is all on the same page, where the thing that you know to be true deep down about you, you're living that out. You're speaking it. You're putting it out in front of you as you progress through your life. That's what it means to be healthy. And my God, when you get to that place and you begin to really live from that place, watch out. You become a dangerous person, because nobody can keep up the act around you anymore. They can't pull the wool over your eyes, because you see through it and you say, no, that's not okay with me. Don't talk about people that are overweight that way. No, please don't make that racial joke in front of me ever again. Yes, I want to quit my job and do this other thing, even though there's risk involved. That's what I really want to do. No, I never want to go back and do that thing ever again. I don't want to see that person. They're malignant to me. They're toxic to me. I don't want to do that. I need that relationship to end. That's what I mean. When you start doing that and you sweep all of the obstacles out of your way, and that kernel down deep inside of you that's made out of God or whatever, that most divine essence, core kernel of who you are begins to actually come out of your mouth. It's like laser beams and fire, just lightning clearing a path before you. And when you do meet resistance, you're at a place now where you're healthy and you believe in yourself, and your integrity becomes the most valuable thing. So no matter what happens around you, as long as you're honest with yourself, you can sleep at night. And that's what we all want. We all want this feeling where we're okay with ourselves, where we can sleep at night. We know who we are. We're not anxious and torn up and spun up on the inside all the time. And that's what we're talking about doing. We're talking about getting there. And that's what it really means to be strong, is when you begin to live from that place. How do you do it? It's a skill. It's a learned skill. Plug your kids' ears here, but this is just such a great metaphor. When you're going to tell somebody the truth, my preferred method is the shit sandwich. And here's what that means. You got bread, you got shit, you got another slice of bread. And so when you're talking to somebody and you're telling somebody something hard, you give them a slice of bread first. You can eat the bread without a lot of trouble before you get down to the shit. And then after you do the shit, you give them another slice of bread. It makes it a lot more palatable. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. You know, it'd be like this. Let's say you're a boss and you've got an employee and you've noticed that every time you come out to their area that they're looking at Facebook or texting, and they're not really doing their work. Okay. Now, what you got to do is you've got to confront that if you're going to be a good boss. If you just don't say anything and go along to get along because you're afraid of conflict, the whole organization suffers because you're allowing the productivity to diminish. And if you're doing it for one, you're likely doing it for all. And this is what we call a bad leader. This is what we call the Peter principle. When somebody's been promoted who doesn't actually have the chutzpah to do the job that's required of them. To be a good leader and a good boss, a good parent, anything like that, you have to have the ego strength or just the strength to say something. So you sit this person down and here's your shit sandwich. You say, hey, you do a great job here. I really see that you're a team player. You're really kind to your coworkers. I appreciate that. We like to have you around. I like your personality. You bring light and life into the workspace. But I really need you to take notice of how much time you're spending doing things other than work, like you're doing a lot of Facebook, I notice, and you're doing a lot of texting, which is fine. And I'm not here to say that's necessarily bad, but I need you to consider that you're here and you're being paid to do a job, and that's not it. That's not the job you're being paid to do. So I would like you to stop doing that during work and focus on the task at hand. And thank you for listening. Thanks for taking the time to sit in here. You know, I'm not angry with you. I'm just doing my job, asking you to do your job. And, again, just keep up the good work. You're really amazing in a lot of ways, and we all have something to improve on. And I'm telling you this because I care about this organization, and I also care about you becoming a better worker and becoming who you were made to be in society. And I care about being honest with myself. You know, that's why I'm saying these things to you, and however your style is. But that kind of gives you an idea of what the shit sandwich might look like. Now, what happens when they throw a temper tantrum? Because that'll happen. You'll get people, when you tell them the truth, that'll just completely lose their minds, even when you've done everything right. Well, let's talk about a husband and a wife. All right. Let's say you say to your husband, I don't like that I'm always doing every single dish after every meal. I'm doing all of the grocery shopping. I'm doing all of the laundry. I know you cut the grass once a week, but on a daily basis, I'm in here doing a lot of stuff, and I work too. I work outside the home, and we have kids, and it just I'm gonna need you to contribute differently than you have before. Now, here are some possible scenarios. 1, pouting. 2, rage. 3, polite acceptance and change of behavior. Now, you can ask yourself what would be most likely out of your partner if you want to know the answer to that. But you're likely to experience some form of pushback. What you're going to get is anger and punishment. You're going to get a reaction in one form or another, and depending on how that person deals with conflict, you're going to get a fireworks display, or you're going to get a rotten hunk of cheese behind the refrigerator. That one of those two. And so be prepared. It's sort of like if that all happens, the best thing to do is just to kind of get out of the way and let that run its course. I mean, that's what it means to let your yes be yes and your no be no. And when they come back at you and they say, well, you're this, and you bought 3 pairs of shoes, and I work all day, and if it wasn't for me, we wouldn't be able to afford to even have a washer and dryer and all that. So you're going to get that. You're going to get that fire-breathing dragon back in your face. And when you do, you say, hey, I know this is a hard conversation, and I really love you, and I'm committed to this family, and I'd appreciate it if you would consider what I'm really saying here. And I do thank you for your contribution to the family, but maybe you could give a little thought to what I'm saying and consider making some changes in your behavior. I would really appreciate that. Furthermore, if you're not able to do that, there's likely to come a time in the near future where I'm not going to have the energy and in good conscience be able to continue to fold your undies, pack your lunchbox, put the soup in the thermos for you. There may come a time where I just don't have the energy to do that, and so I'm just telling you that now, and that's the difference between being passive aggressive. You're not just going to stop doing it, or start spitting in his thermos. You're going to say, I'm not going to do this anymore, because I'm maxed out, and that's what it means to sort of be direct with what you're saying as opposed to indirect. And so he's going to punish. Potentially, he's in really severe cases. You can see anything and everything from abuse and hitting and drinking and yelling and punching holes in walls and throwing things and squealing the tires out the driveway. And, I've seen it all. I've heard it all. I was thinking back to that story. Wasn't it like Andre Rison and, the football wide receiver, and wasn't he dating a member of TLC? This has been years ago now, but I always remember like she sat his crap on fire, like just flat out lit it up. And I've always just kind of wondered what the transcription of that conversation was leading up to that. And then, of course, what were the substances flowing around in each other's veins in that moment. But that's an extreme example, but a lot of times you're just going to get a slow burn. You're going to get some passive aggression, maybe a little grumbling and stuff like that. But you stick to it. And so a few days go by, or a week or a month, and you're starting to get worn down by his continued attempts to punish you for not doing what he expects you to do. That's when you really got to stick to your guns. Because if you cave, oh boy, that's when you really prove yourself to be a wash rag. That's when you display your doormat for all the world to see. And so you got to stick to your guns. And that may take a real commitment, an intentional commitment on your part, where you're saying, this is a thing I care about that's important to me from a growth perspective, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to stick to it, and I'm going to tell a friend about it, and I'm going to talk to my therapist about it or whatever. And this is happening. Well, but Doc, if I did that, I know he'd leave me. I know he would. Well, that's a possibility. We do have to consider the worst case scenario. But right now you're a prison in your own home. You don't have autonomy. You're someone's slave. You're making someone else's dreams come true. You're spending a good portion of your time giving everything you have for someone else, getting nothing in return. Is that how you want to live out your days? If that is, fine. I'm not making a judgment against that, but I'm suggesting to you that you could have it better. You could have more. And I'm not saying you leave him or that he ought to leave you, but I think if you really want your marriage to come back online and be healthy again, this is exactly the kind of thing you need to be doing. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Hear me say that again. It's going to get worse before it gets better. When you set a boundary of any kind, you get, like I say, the fireworks display, but then eventually that stuff extinguishes. It begins to die out, And hopefully if you've got a partner that's somewhat reasonable, at some point they come back and they say, look, I hear what you're saying. I've given it some thought, and maybe we change our budget around a little bit and we hire a housekeeper, or maybe I quit a bowling league or poker night or something, and really help everybody get caught up on the chores around here or something like that. So that's how it could go down theoretically if people are interested in working towards that. And please understand, I'm aware that that's a very difficult thing to come across in a person, and you may not have that, and you may know that you're never going to have that, and you may in your partner, and so you may make a decision to stay in a relationship knowing that it's not going to be as healthy as it could be, but for some really good reasons you're choosing to be in that relationship. Say because you've committed to be in that relationship, you have children with that person, there's economic ties that bind. It's good a lot of the time in a lot of ways, maybe not all of the ways you would like. You do have to make some compromises. We don't get everything our way all the time. But I say that to alleviate any shame. If you know that you're partnered up with somebody who's not capable or not healthy enough to take responsibility for the ways they're not contributing, it does make some sense sometimes to just live with it. I mean, because you may not ever see it change, and then I realize there'd be a mess sometimes if you take this stuff all the way to the logical conclusion of actually ending the relationship and all that would entail. I get that. But this is a big deal. I mean, guys, look at what's going on in the media, man. We've got a society where we've got perpetrators coming out of the woodwork, and these guys don't hear no. That's how they got to be perpetrators. You don't give me what I want, I'm going to take it. You don't give me what I want, you're fired. You don't give me what I want, I'm going to out you as a tramp or something. This is where we're at in our society, where our collective narcissism has boiled over. The shit sandwich it's like a sloppy Joe. It's all over the place. There's not enough napkins in the world to clean our face. And it's time for us to have some boundaries, to say no to being timid and say yes to being strong and assertive, standing up for ourselves, saying what we mean, meaning what we say. This goes for the guys and the gals, and it goes for relationships anywhere and everywhere where that would be appropriate, and it goes for our kids especially. If you cannot tell your kids no, good luck. You're going to be saying yes to trips down to the police station is what you're going to be saying yes to. So get it through your heads here. It's time. It's really time. If you're listening to this and this is resonating and you're like, ugh, this sucks. I mean, he's right. I know I need to do this. It's okay. It's all right. Take your time. Just consider it. Think about it. Let it become a thought experiment first. Maybe start small. And you don't have to upset the apple cart. And I wouldn't even recommend doing that. But and counseling, again, I've mentioned this, but gosh, if you're having a hard time having these kinds of conversations, go ask a professional how to do it. Get them in the room and have them help you mediate that kind of a dialogue. So you guys can do this. You have it in you. It's imperative for your own emotional health and for you to get what you really want out of life, and for your relationships to be as healthy as they can be. This is an important step for you, and it's been lost in our society. We think nice is the highest value instead of honesty. We think fairness is the highest value instead of internal integrity, and that stuff's getting us into trouble. Being nice and fair gets us a lot of entitlement, is what that gets us. Accepting that life is not always fair, it's very difficult at times. Taking responsibility and having internal integrity gets you strength, healthy relationships. It gets you generally into jobs and careers that are something that you really want for yourself. It gets you into a place of general peace and an ability to sleep at night without crushing anxiety and depression, and panic. I mean, that's a lot of that's. You know what? This is where this stuff comes from. I mean, it comes from a lot of this depression and anxiety stuff. Yes, it's chemical, fine, whatever. Meds work, meds help and stuff. But a lot of that is buildup of just simply not letting the truth of your situation come out of your mouth. We're like pressure cookers. I mean, you just keep packing in the lies and the hiding and the cover up and the control and the false self and the going along to get along and the, all that crap. I mean, and eventually it blows. And when it blows, it isn't pretty. And that's why you need to do this all along and do it in a way that keeps the pressure from rising so high, and just always be saying the thing, always be confronting the thing that's stuck in your craw. Don't let anything stick there. Go pull it out right away. If it means a phone call, make that phone call. If it means, pulling the car over for a second and having a conversation nicely so nobody drives off the road, do that. If it means enforcing some real meaningful consequences with your children. Oh my God, what if they don't get to play the sport this year? Oh no. I mean, seriously, we got to get some priorities straight in terms of what is okay to let happen to our children. If you're a safety net under them all the time and never let them fall because you're too afraid to confront them and you feel guilty and you feel like they deserve it and they're going to be mad and they need what the other kids have and they're going to be weird and it's actually not loving. I mean, that's the thing is it seems like it is because it makes them happy. They smile big and bright when you give them a new Xbox for no good reason, or they throw a giant temper tantrum when you tell them they can't play it or take away their phone or something. It seems like you're not being nice. Well, you're not being nice. You're being a parent. They're different. So you get those roles straight in your mind, and you're going to have a lot easier go of it in your household. And there's a million books on this and a million websites, and most of the good ones say the same things basically, which is have boundaries and do some version of what I'm telling you. But thanks for listening. This is about where I'm going to end this. I think if you have questions about this or elaboration that you'd like, or questions and topics and all that, please feel free to comment on the video, comment on Facebook, email me, contact@theheartacheconnoisseur.com. Go to the website, theheartacheconnoisseur.com. I think there's a contact link on there. Happy to get the feedback from y'all and share this stuff. It's meant to be helpful. It's meant to be somewhat entertaining, but also helpful and tackle the hard stuff head on. So feel free to make it a routine to listen to this and use it to help maybe make a few changes that are healthy. That's why I'm doing this, because I think that all of us, the only thing that any of us have any power to do is make decisions with what we're going to do with our own self. And what I'm doing with my own self and with some of the expertise I've gathered over the years is I'm giving it to you because I genuinely care about families in our country, and I want to see people get healthier and begin to have happier, healthier relationships and parent-child dynamics and all that. That's why I'm down here. Whether they give me any endorsements ever or not, I'd still do this. And so take that into account when you're sharing this thing and helping out in whatever way you can by just kind of listening and gathering awareness for me. So thank you for your help on that. And, please tune in. I'm going to be doing these pretty regularly. I got a lot of these stacked up in my mind and things we want to do, topics we want to cover, and there's just a million things. So keep coming back and drive safe. Have a fabulous Thanksgiving. May your homes be happy and healthy, and may you find some deep and genuine things to be thankful for and to have some gratitude for. And that'll change your day if you stop and be thankful. So we'll see ya.